Words are ephemeral as the morning mist, fleeting whispers that scatter with the rising sun. Yet victory stands as enduring as carved stone, unyielding and immutable. In the theater of power, the one who utters first often unveils far more than intended, while the one who listens longest commands the hidden currents that shape fate. Silence is not a void. It is a calculated act, a measured pause that speaks volumes when fewer words lead to a greater effect. In the realm of authority, the tongue can betray more than a lack of restraint. Every uttered syllable risks unraveling your carefully built defenses. Each shared opinion can become a chink in armor that once seemed impenetrable. True silence is not mere absence of sound, but the deliberate presence of discipline, a controlled stillness where the common man clamors to be heard, yet the wise sovereign remains quiet, absorbing the world around him. In that quiet observation lies an unfathomable strength. Power is never earned through endless justification. It demands consolidation, a careful merging of actions that fortify your position. Those who utter excessively reveal not only their innermost intentions, but also the contours of their fears and the borders of their limitations. A man who takes the time to explain himself is already on the defensive. One who defends his plans verbally sacrifices the advantage that comes from mystery. When you speak, you lay bare targets for your adversaries. When you remain silent, your intentions are shrouded in ambiguity, forcing others to speculate. And as speculation breeds doubt, doubt births caution, and caution in turn provides control. The ambitious must grasp this truth early on. The battlefield does not reside solely within the marble halls of courts or the polished chambers of parliaments. It ignites in every conversation, every negotiation, and even in the seemingly harmless chatter of everyday meetings. Behind every dialogue, there is an unseen war of influence, a silent struggle that most fail to detect. Many lose because they remain oblivious to the conflict unfolding beneath their very ears, revealing their strategy like novices laying their cards bare at the first sign of play. Men speak from a yearning for recognition, craving the validation of their peers. They air out visions and complaints as if seeking admission to a club, yet in this outpouring lie vulnerabilities masked as virtues. A prince or any who aspires to rule must strip away such weaknesses. If the objective is to claim and maintain power, every step must be paved with discretion. Speak only when your words fortify your dominion, only to implant ideas in others rather than dredge up your own uncertainties. A man who speaks sparingly compels his audience to fill the silence with their conjectures, and those assumptions become far more perilous than the truth itself. Observe nature's hunters. The lion does not bellow before launching an ambush, nor does the serpent hiss before its lethal strike. In the natural order, the predator that conceals itself until the precise moment of attack secures victory. Though humans are infinitely more complex, the principle holds true. The loudest voice in the room is seldom the most potent. Indeed, excessive noise often masks a fragile soul. The sagacious individual permits others to argue and declare while he watches, remembers, and waits, his silence gathering intelligence as effortlessly as a sponge absorbs water. In a gathering of voices, the quietest man discerns the alliances, rivalries, and ambitions that lurk behind every mask, noting the subtle gestures, the inflections, and the pauses. In his silence, those around him tremble, for they cannot fathom what lurks behind that impenetrable calm. Uncertainty becomes his cloak, and it casts a long, ominous shadow over all who encounter him. People have a tendency to project their own desires and fears onto the unknown. When they are unable to read your thoughts, they begin to imagine you possess a power beyond measure, even if that power is but an illusion. In the arena of politics, perception often outranks reality. Those who hold honesty and transparency as the pinnacle virtues rarely seize power. They are at the mercy of the unpredictable and the unguarded. Vulnerability, when mistaken for trust, renders a man foreseeable and controllable. Once his motives are laid bare, opposition is sure to form. Instead, if he speaks little, if his responses are laced with questions or deflections, if he listens far more than he talks, he transforms into a mystery, an enigma that is, in itself, a formidable source of power. There is a moment to speak, but it must come only after your objectives are nearly secured. Words, when they must be used, should not serve as explanations. They should assert dominion. They should confirm a power that has already been forged, not entreat for something yet unattained. Let your adversaries be the ones who chatter, exposing their own insecurities. Let your allies speak unguardedly, so that you might discern their ambitions. Let the masses babble, for their clamor will distract them from your subtle maneuvers. Silence nurtures mystery, and mystery itself is the armor that cloaks authority. When those around you cannot decipher your true thoughts, they tread with extreme caution. A ruler must be either revered or dreaded, but if love is unattainable, he must ensure that ridicule never finds purchase in the mind of his subjects. For nothing invites derision more than constant self-explanation. Speak less, display more. Allow them to ponder your intentions, to fabricate their own interpretations of your silence. For words that are never spoken can always be denied, and mystery sustains an unchallenged reign. In councils of war, in debates of state, and within secret chambers of influence, remember this: the one who listens gains all, while the one who speaks may win applause. But applause is transient and fades all too quickly. Exposure, on the other hand, remains, and in the treacherous world of politics, business, or courtly intrigue, the fool will always be the one who speaks first, while the cunning reserve their words until absolutely necessary. True power is seized not by grandiose orations, but by subtle, deliberate movements, quiet steps taken behind closed curtains. It is not the orator who shapes a nation, but the man who, with whispered counsel in the ear of a ruler, molds the destiny of empires. There is more strategy in silence than in 1,000 loud declarations. Those who grasp this truth need never beg for respect. Instead, respect will envelop them like an invisible diadem. Let others mistake silence for weakness. They will never see the hidden blade until it is too late. The world does not reward those who are merely virtuous. It rewards those who are effective. This is the fundamental error of the weak: the belief that morality, in and of itself, wields power. In human affairs, virtue without the steel to back it is doomed to be ridiculed, shattered, or forgotten. History enshrines the victorious, regardless of their means, while the virtuous who lose become mere footnotes. To elevate virtue above victory is to misinterpret the very mechanics of power. Rulers, statesmen, generals, all who dare to dream of dominion, must learn that the cherished values taught to children in churches and schools are not those that forge empires. Traits like meekness, unyielding honesty, or overwhelming compassion may rule the hearts of the common folk, but they are liabilities for anyone who aspires to rule. A prince who clings to such fragile ideals in an arena rife with treachery and boundless ambition will soon find himself overthrown by those who harbor no such encumbrances. True virtue, stripped of its sentimental garb, is utility. It is any principle that brings stability, control, and the promise of longevity to power. Mercy becomes a virtue only when it secures loyalty. Cruelty, only when it forestalls insurrection. Deception, only when it blinds those who would oppose you. In this redefinition of virtue lies the key to survival. The ideal ruler must free himself from the common man's simplistic morality. For the masses judge by appearances rather than the intricate realities hidden behind them. They are seduced by grandeur, by what seems noble, not by what is pragmatically effective. A wise leader manipulates these illusions adeptly. A prince who appears virtuous in a world teeming with serpents is not more than pretense. You might choose to shun deceit, yet your adversaries will not. You might cling to loyalty, but your closest allies may betray when opportunity arises. And should you ever falter, the world will claim that you were once good, only to trample your memory with scorn. No honor remains for a man whose defeat is measured by virtue rather than by victory. True greatness does not spring from adoration or fleeting praise. It is forged from constancy and the relentless pursuit of dominion. You must abandon the pursuit of goodness and instead chase dominion. Praise fades, but power endures. People may label you ruthless, unjust, or even monstrous. But if you fashion a realm that endures the sands of time, their words will be rendered hollow by the legacy of conquest. History remembers conquerors and rulers, not those who complain or cower in self-righteousness. Do not be lured by the sanctimonious language of moralists. Their words, wrapped in the guise of laurels, are but hollow platitudes. They advocate fair play while they cheat in shadows, and they cry for humility while amassing power. They condemn ambition, not on moral grounds, but from fear, a fear that strips you of every advantage. In their haste to belittle you, they become complicit in their own undoing. Instead of playing by their rules, you must rewrite the very fabric of those rules. The triumphant know that perception overrides principle. Appear noble, but act with unyielding strategy. Speak of justice while diligently securing your position. Preach idealism even as you steadily extend your sphere of influence. Never confuse the carefully engineered image with the often brutal reality it conceals. A true ruler dons the mask of virtue while secretly wielding the dagger of necessity. It is far more advantageous to be accused of cruelty than to be perceived as weak. It is better to be feared and unwavering than to be loved and ultimately overthrown. The masses cannot grasp complexity. They respond only to the stark dualities of symbols and simple stories. They remember the strong, not the kind, the resolute, not the benevolent. The gentle leader, though well-intentioned, is devoured in times of strife, while the feared ruler, regardless of public disdain, retains his power. It is power, not affection, that is the true currency in the shaping of tomorrow. Every man who has built an empire bears the indelible stain of blood, whether hidden beneath ceremonial rites or veiled by legal pretexts. None achieved greatness solely by kindness. Learn this lesson well. If a man is both beloved and triumphant, it is the victory that forged his likability, not the other way around. Temporary applause may be won by clinging to lofty ideals, but only through decisive triumph do you etch your legacy. Legacies are written by victors, not by those who capitulate under the weight of idealism. There will be voices that decry the notion that the ends justify the means, yet these are invariably the lamentations of the powerless. Ask the vanquished if they ever believed in the sanctity of rules or questioned the exiled on the worth of fairness. Their faith lies in process, not in outcome. But the wise must believe in outcome. If stability is your end, then deceit is justified. If peace is your goal, then force may be warranted. If power is your aim, any means become acceptable. So long as you remain at the helm, forgiveness or even redemption is rendered unnecessary by the fear you instill. Train your heart to discard the alluring temptations of emotional purity. Do not labor to be cherished or liked. Instead, strive to be unshakable, to be impervious. There is far more strength in the silent discipline of 1,000 loyal warriors than in the fickle applause of transient admirers. Conquer not by declaring your intentions, but by silently shaping outcomes. Appear invincible where you are vulnerable. Demonstrate usefulness where others are callous, and ensure that your image radiates fear and certainty. Let the world see only what you permit it. Speak only when the cost of keeping silent outweighs the price of your words. In the art of power, silence is not surrender, but a calculated act, a fortress of resolve that guards you from entrapment. Embrace silence as your shield and weapon, and you will find that your every deliberate pause commands more respect than a torrent of verbiage. For it is not the words themselves, but the quiet resolve behind them that dictates the fate of realms. A ruler who must constantly proclaim his authority has already forfeited the very aura that cements his power. Heed this truth. In a world awash with noise, the quiet leader is the one whose presence echoes the loudest. A mere glance, a measured pause, or a subtle nod can arrest rebellion and unsettle even the most brazen challengers. When you remain silent, you invite others to reveal themselves, their ambitions, their fears, and their true allegiances. In that gathering of whispered secrets, you become the mirror in which they reflect their own uncertainties. And in this dance of silence and sound, you build a leverage that remains invisible to the untrained eye. Control over perception is control over destiny. When your adversaries attempt to mask their true intentions with bluster, counter them with the quiet power of calculated inaction. Let the weakness of excess words become their undoing, for when a man speaks too freely, he surrenders the very mystery that commands respect. Resist the temptation to explain or justify. Instead, construct your aura with deliberate precision. Each word a coin weighed, each pause a veil drawn over the workings of your mind. Ultimately, the art of power is the mastery of misdirection and timing. Plant seeds of doubt in your foes and watch them wither, while your silence nurtures an aura of invincibility. The ruler who perfectly conceals his vulnerabilities transforms his every secret into a weapon, his every unspoken thought into a legacy of control. Even when betrayal comes, as it inevitably will, it must be executed with such quiet precision that its origin remains shrouded in an impenetrable haze of uncertainty. In that moment, your enemies, caught off guard and bereft of guidance, will falter before the silent strength of your resolve. Do not underestimate the potency of restraint. In every conversation, in every conflict, measure your words as if they were the currency of fate. Speak only to shape outcomes, never to appease or please the momentary whims of a fickle crowd. For it is not a cascade of adulation that solidifies a reign, but the steady, almost imperceptible manipulation of perception. A manipulation so subtle that even the most astute observer remains uncertain of your true intentions. The cunning ruler knows that the quiet force of silence holds more sway than any grand declaration. A well-timed pause can halt the advance of rebellion. A measured gesture can quell the rising tide of dissent. In an age where noise is the norm and chatter is mistaken for strength, let your silence become the clarion call of authority. Those who mistake quietude for weakness are doomed to be confounded by the very enigma they sought to exploit. Remember, allies are rarely equals in the game of power. They are instruments, means to an end. One must assess each man not by his surface virtues, but by what he offers, what threatens, and what he secretly craves. A loyal servant may be nurtured, while a greedy man must be fed his own desire until it becomes a chain, that binds him to your will. Vanity, greed, pride, every human impulse is a lever waiting for the deft hand of a true master. And so, as you stand on the precipice of dominion, cloaked not by proclamations but by the quiet gravity of your presence, let your silence resound louder than any cacophony. Allow your actions, measured and unhurried, to project the kind of power that needs no constant affirmation. For history is not written by those who speak until they are heard, but by those who act so decisively that even their quietude inspires both awe and dread. In the corridors of power, where every word is a risk and every gaze scrutinizes for weakness, you must learn the art of delayed speech, of listening more than you speak, of understanding that each silent second is a step toward absolute control. Delay, then, as you would savor the most potent nectar, for in that pause lies the strength to turn chaos into order and uncertainty into unquestioned loyalty. Now, as you embark on this path illuminated by the subtle wisdom of silence, remember that each deliberate pause, each measured gesture, is a testament to your unyielding resolve. The arena of power is not won by those who shout their intentions to the heavens, but by those who, through quiet design, shape fate from behind a veil of mystery. Those who relentlessly command the chatter are ultimately undone by the very noise they create, for in their clamor they betray the secret that has long been the cornerstone of enduring power, the power of silence. So let it be known, the most formidable rulers are not those who exhaust their voices on empty declarations, but those who wear silence like a cloak and wield it as a weapon. They let others speak, listen with intent, and observe every subtle shift in the winds of ambition. And when the time comes to act, their decisions are as swift and decisive as the strike of a hidden blade. Their legacy is not defined by the ephemeral applause of fleeting audiences, but by the timeless imprint of an unchallenged reign. For ultimately, power is not defined by the goodness of one's actions, but by the effectiveness with which they are concealed under the shroud of meticulously cultivated mystique. Appear perfect, appear unassailable. Let your silence weigh more heavily than the loudest proclamation, and may your every action fortify a domain built not on transient praise, but on the eternal, uncompromising rule of order. They are frightened, not by your words, but by the vast, impenetrable silence that speaks of undying command. And in that silence, your empire is born.